We know it is logically possible for humans to move as quickly on the moon as they do on Earth, but the Apollo astronauts found it difficult to move around because of their heavy spacesuits. You may have heard about many vehicles, but have you ever heard about a vehicle that was used for the moon? Don't worry if you have not heard about it, because in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Lunar Roving Vehicle, which was used by the Apollo astronauts on the moon. In this video, we're going to talk about the Lunar Roving Vehicle and all the news around it. So, without further ado, let's get started with the video. Before President Kennedy called for the landing of astronauts on the moon in 1961, two men sketched up their ideas for what lunar surface exploration may require. In their invented world, lunar rovers travel in surface vehicles, tank-like autos with caterpillar treads for mobility over the rugged surface of the moon. These moon vehicles had a maximum range of around 250 miles and could go 25 miles per hour on flat ground using a fuel mix of hydrogen peroxide and fuel oil. These inventors included Wernher von Braun, technical head of the Armory Ordnance Guided Missiles Development Group and frequently referred to as the founder of modern rocketry, and Fred Whipple, chair of the astronomy department at Harvard University. In a 1952 Scholars Weekly essay titled The Exploration, they collaborated to provide original concepts about how humans will visit and explore the moon. In their vision, automobiles will be used to move people and goods faster and further. While Apollo only brought 2 men to the lunar surface, Whipple and von Braun had envisaged a massive week-long lunar exploration team with many ships carrying 10 men. The Lunar Roving Vehicle utilized on subsequent longer Apollo missions enhanced scientific endeavors by widening the area the crew could go. However, the concept of a moon vehicle has remained intriguing. NASA hired Boeing and the Delco Electronics unit of General Motors to construct the Lunar Roving Vehicle. The spacecraft had to be as light and as efficient as possible during relatively brief lunar stays of between 22 and 75 hours. The first car was delivered in March of 1971, after work on it had started in 1969. The 3 LRVs, which were carried on Apollo 15, 16, and 17, ultimately cost NASA $38 million, even though the original contract was for $19 million. The Lunar Roving Vehicle measured roughly 10 feet in length and 6 feet in width. It weighed around 460 pounds when empty and had a carrying capacity of 1,080 pounds, which could accommodate 2 grown men in their spacesuits, which weighed about 180 pounds, as well as any tools and rocks that they could find to bring back to the Lunar Module. The Lunar Roving Vehicle had a maximum forward and reverse speed of around 9 miles per hour, which was impressive, but not nearly as fast or as heavy as Whipple and von Braun's projected moon cars. It could go over barriers including rocks that were up to 1 feet high and across crevices that were around 2 feet wide. The controls for the wheels, drive motors, and brakes were located between the seats of the 2 astronauts instead of a steering wheel. When the right mode was selected, pressing the forward button would propel the rover forward or backward, while turning the joystick-like control would turn the wheels. The rover's manual sun shadow device could also be used if necessary. Astronauts normally used an odometer and a directional gyro to keep the vehicle pointed in the right direction while traveling. The Lunar Roving Vehicle had a built-in antenna, tool caddies, and cameras. But the question was, how do you transport a moon vehicle to the moon once you have one? The lunar vehicle was intended to be a folding vehicle that folded up inside the lunar module's descent stage, with all 4 wheels on top and facing inward, and the rover's flat bottom facing out. Even with heavy equipment, 2 astronauts could unpack the Lunar Roving Vehicle once they had reached the lunar surface, by pulling on ropes and a D-handle to separate the vehicle from the lunar module. Trees and bars flipped the wheels into propeller positions when the rover was lowered to the ground, making the majority of the rover's deployment automatic. The 2 open-air seats were flipped up and the footrest secured once the rover was on its wheels and ready to rove. James Irwin and David Scott, astronauts aboard Apollo 15, completed the full procedure in around 40 minutes. The Lunar Roving Vehicle, like every piece of equipment brought to the moon, had to operate throughout a wide temperature range from 128 to 121 degrees Celsius. The rover's electronics were kept cool using a variety of techniques, including specialist paints and coatings, wax boxes that drew heat from the circuits, and radiator panels that could be opened to reveal an order to let the heat escape between excursions. The rover could be parked in the shade of the lunar module to cool off after a drive, but the astronauts couldn't leave it there for longer than 2 hours without running the risk of the opposite happening to the electronics of the vehicle, being damaged due to the cold. But the rover's bumpers were one of the most effective heat-reflecting weapons. These parts weren't only added to give the rover a more car-like appearance, they were crucial to its operation because they prevented its wire mesh wheels, which included titanium chevrons for extra grip, from producing too much dust while it was driving. Dust that was darker in color would absorb the heat from the sun and heat the surface it was on and into potentially dangerous high temperatures. For instance, dust on the rover's radiator panels decreased their effectiveness, which further restricted the rover's capacity to cool down. The rover was thoroughly cleaned by the astronauts, who also brushed dust off the panels to increase their capacity to disperse heat until the next journey covered them once more. Due to the moon's reduced gravity, as the rover moves, it leaves a rooster tail, as the astronauts termed it. This is because the gravitational attraction on the moon is just 1/6 of what it is on Earth. Anything short from the surface of golf balls, dust flies significantly further than it would on Earth before falling back down because of the airless environment. On the moon, the dust gets everywhere, no matter what you are doing. Harrison Schmitt, an astronaut, even experienced brief hay fever-like symptoms, including a scratchy throat. The dust-busting fenders, however, only function as long as they were functional and attached to the rover. Gene Kernan's strap-on shin pocket caught on the right rear fender of the rover during the first EVA of Apollo 17, yanking it off the vehicle. Fortunately, another essential component of Apollo was duct tape. Cernan patched the dislodged fender back into place while Schmitt continued forward, but he eventually managed to reattach the fender for an infinite amount of time. The astronauts drove the rover to various locations. The duct tape fender held it for a while, but eventually it slipped off in transportation due to the dust on the tape, which prevented it from properly retaining the fender. While neither astronaut noticed the fender falling off, Schmitt did detect an increase in the amount of dust falling back on the astronauts and the rover as they drove. The two continued their way back to the Lunar Module with only 3 fenders. Cernan noticed that the dust on the rover's battery covers was thick enough to ride on, far thicker than the customary thin layer of dust that would build with a functional vehicle. They needed a fix, and this time it had to include a new fender. The mission engineers were up to the challenge. Engineers designed a remedy overnight based on the astronauts' evaluation of the damage done and a list of mission supplies, which John Young tested on a mock-up rover back on Earth. Cernan and Schmitt were tasked with creating a new fender out of 4 pages of laminated lunar surface maps bound together with more American-grade tape. They clamped it to the guide rail where the old fender was attached. The method was successful, as the dust problem was decreased to a manageable level, and the astronauts were able to operate the rover for an additional 15 hours of EVA activities. They took the remaining 3 complete fenders as well as their replacement before departing the moon to return to Earth. According to Schmitt, his experience on Apollo 17 illustrated one of the most significant obstacles of brief exploration of our satellite. The dust problem is one that simply must be addressed. It's going to be a huge environmental issue for future moon missions, he remarked after returning to Earth. Among the many hurdles faced by astronauts and the engineers of Apollo, collaboration and inventiveness guaranteed that we could not only send automobiles to the moon, but also repair it when things went wrong unexpectedly. Finally, the Lunar Roving Vehicle enabled man to explore more of the moon than they could have on foot, increasing the total distance walked during EVA from 3,300 feet on Apollo 11 to 19.3 miles by Apollo 17, and total samples obtained from 47.5 pounds to 244 pounds. NASA left 3 lunar roving vehicles on the moon's surface. They are still parked near the descent stage of each mission's LM, which also function as a launch pad for lifting off of the moon. The cameras on the rovers were used to film the subsequent liftoffs, capturing the spray of foil and dust as the ascent stage rocketed skyward. The cameras continued to record until the rover's battery failed, and the last transmission from the lunar surface went dark. Do you find lunar roving vehicles interesting? We would love to read your opinions in the comment section below. If you're interested in moon topics, take a look at our video of how the moon can flood the Earth in 2030 that is shown right here. We hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did like the video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press that bell icon to stay notified when we release new videos. And until then, take care.